Most people remember summer camp as a time of freedom, fresh air, and friendship bracelets. But if you actually look back, it was more like a minimum security prison run by teenagers with a god complex. From mandatory urine inspections to apologizing to toilet paper, we are looking at 49 real rules from American summer camps that are so neurotic, they border on psychological warfare. If you survived childhood without a nervous tick, this list might just give you one now. 1. Deep in the heart of Nebraska, a summer camp administration decided that natural social interaction wasn't awkward enough, so they instituted a mandatory compliment hour. For 60 excruciating minutes every single day, campers are legally required to say nice things to at least 5 different humans. You can imagine how quickly the well of genuine kindness runs dry with a bunch of sweaty 12-year-olds. By minute 15, they aren't giving compliments. They are just describing physical attributes with a smile to avoid punishment. You end up with bizarre statements like, "Your knees are very round," or "You breathe air very consistently." It is essentially a training ground for future politicians to learn how to speak without actually saying anything of value. 2. A camp in Pennsylvania has apparently decided that the real world is too traumatic, so they enforce a strict policy where every single bedtime story must end on a happy note. It doesn't matter if you're telling a terrifying legend about a hook-handed maniac. By the end of it, that maniac needs to open a soup kitchen and give back to the community. One counselor tried to tell the classic Hansel and Gretel fairy tale and was forced to improvise a new ending mid-sentence. Instead of the oven scene, the witch simply invited the children inside for a gluten-free baking seminar, and they all invested in real estate together. It ruins the entire point of a ghost story if the monster just needs a hug and a life coach. 3. There is a camp out there operating under a draconian one s'more per person policy. It is strictly enforced like the Prohibition era of sugar. The directors claim this is about fairness, but let's be honest, it is just administrative cheapness disguised as morality. This restriction has naturally created a thriving black market that would make Al Capone jealous. Desperate kids are out there trading smuggled granola bars, friendship bracelets, and unwashed socks just to get their hands on a second marshmallow. The woods aren't scary because of bears. They are scary because you might get shanked with a sharpened stick by a sugar-deprived camper looking for contraband chocolate. 4. In the mountains of Idaho, a camp director with a flair for the dramatic set the official wake-up time at exactly 6:07 a.m. Not 6, not 6:15, but 6:07 on the dot. When confused parents asked why, the director deadpanned, "That is when the sun blesses the camp." I hate to break it to him, but the sun operates on physics, not his personal itinerary. The best part is that this blessing is scheduled regardless of the weather. So even if it is pouring rain and the sky is pitch black, these poor kids are dragged out of their bunks at 6:07 a.m. to stand in the mud and be blessed by hypothermia. It feels less like a fun summer getaway and more like the opening scene of a documentary about a strange woodland cult. 5. A North Carolina camp has implemented what might be the most neurotic rule in botanical history. Campers are only allowed to sniff flowers an even number of times. The rationale provided by the staff is that flowers get lonely if sniffed an odd number of times. This is psychological warfare disguised as nature appreciation. Now you have dozens of children wandering the trails, anxiously double-sniffing dandelions and counting under their breath because they are terrified of hurting a plant's feelings. It is the perfect way to instill obsessive-compulsive disorder in an entire generation of youth before they even finish breakfast. 6. Down in Florida, a camp decided to solve the problem of gossip by banning whispering during mealtimes. The logic was that if you can't whisper, you can't exclude people. However, anyone who has ever met a child knows that if you take away their volume control, they don't stop talking. They just broadcast their secrets at top volume. The dining hall has transformed into a screaming match where kids yell, "I think Jason wet the bed," across 3 tables just to comply with the rules. Instead of a polite dinner, it sounds like the trading floor of the New York Stock Exchange, but with more mashed potatoes flying around. 7. Keeping with the Florida weirdness, Another camp forbids wearing flip-flops or sandals after 5 p.m. Their scientific explanation is that 5 p.m. is exactly when the mosquitoes start taking feet taxes. Apparently, the insects in that swamp operate on a strict union schedule and don't clock in until early evening. If a camper forgets and wears open-toed shoes to dinner, they face a sock intervention, which sounds like a humiliating public ceremony where you are forcibly reshod by counselors. It is a dress code enforced by the threat of blood loss, which is honestly more effective than any detention slip could ever be. 8. Back in Pennsylvania, a camp has banned the phrase "I can't" from the camper's vocabulary entirely. If those two words slip out, you are forced to stop what you are doing and rephrase the sentence into something more positive. It turns every moment of struggle into a corporate HR meeting. So if a kid is dangling from a rock wall, terrified for his life, he isn't allowed to scream for help. He has to calmly articulate, "I am currently facing a challenge with my vertical ascension goals." It is absolutely delusional to force positive affirmations on a child who is just trying not to fall off a cliff. But hey, at least they are building character while suppressing their survival instincts. 9. A camp in Oregon has instituted a rule that fundamentally misunderstands how human lungs operate. They enforce a strict "no holding your breath for longer than 3 seconds" policy while in the swimming pool. Their logic is that competition breathing leads to unsafe habits, which sounds like something a lawyer invented to avoid a lawsuit. This effectively bans every fun underwater game known to man, from tea parties on the pool floor to seeing who can swim the furthest without surfacing. If you are caught playing a game, you have to pop your head up like a nervous prairie dog every 3 seconds or face the wrath of the breath patrol. It turns a relaxing swim into a high-stress interval training session where the lifeguards act more like oxygen dictators than safety officers. 10. Down in South Carolina, a summer camp has declared war on the very concept of rest. They have completely banned unauthorized naps. If a camper is caught catching some Z's outside of the designated sleeping hours, they are not gently woken up, they are punished. The penalty for being exhausted is to run a lap around the entire camp to wake up their energy. Because obviously, the most logical medical response to physical exhaustion is forced cardio. It is a backwards philosophy that essentially says, "Oh, your battery is low? Let's drain the rest of it immediately." It creates a zombie army of sleep-deprived children dragging their feet across the finish line just so they can sit back down and try not to blink. 11. In the wilds of Montana, there is a camp that believes weather patterns are controlled by applause. They have banned clapping during rainstorms because, and I quote, "it confuses the clouds." I am not sure what kind of meteorology degree these counselors have, but I am pretty sure cumulonimbus clouds do not have ears or self-esteem issues. The level of commitment to this superstition is terrifying. One time, a rebellious camper clapped during a drizzle, and a counselor genuinely scolded him, claiming his applause caused the storm to last exactly 10 minutes longer than it was supposed to. It is the kind of pseudoscience that would get you laughed out of a medieval village, let alone a modern educational camp. 12. A summer camp in Louisiana has a safety policy that is pure nightmare fuel for anyone who values privacy. They removed the locks from all bathroom stalls. The administration claims it prevents kids from locking themselves in or hiding, but in reality, it creates a culture of extreme paranoia. Campers have had to develop a complex warning system involving loud coughing, whistling, or sticking one foot aggressively under the door to signal occupancy. Using the restroom shouldn't require a tactical defense strategy. But at this camp, you have to guard the perimeter just to use the toilet in peace. 13. A camp in Arkansas has declared a total ban on peanut butter, but not for the reasons you might think. It has nothing to do with deadly allergies, and everything to do with the fact that it is too messy. However, the hypocrisy here is staggering. While banning a sandwich spread for being sticky, the administration happily organizes spaghetti eating contests with no utensils and allows finger painting sessions using chocolate pudding. Apparently, the specific molecular structure of peanut butter is considered chaos. But smearing chocolate handprints all over the cabin walls is just good, clean fun. It is a selective cleanliness policy that makes absolutely zero sense to anyone with a functioning brain. 14. Up in Maine, a camp has decided that ink is the tool of the devil. They have banned the use of pens, markers, and pencils for anything other than serious academic work, leaving crayons as the only legal writing instrument for free time. Have you ever tried to write a detailed letter home to your parents using a dull, bright green crayon? It doesn't look like a heartfelt update from your child. It looks like a ransom note written by a serial killer who lives in a kindergarten. It forces teenagers to communicate with the aesthetic of a 3-year-old, ensuring that every piece of correspondence leaving the camp looks utterly deranged and illegible. 15. In Colorado, a camp has decided to police the vocabulary of its campers by banning big words in casual conversation. If you try to sound even remotely intelligent by saying a hike was particularly exhilarating or the food was palatable, you will be stopped and told to speak in camp-friendly language. It is essentially forced anti-intellectualism. The goal is to make everyone sound equal, but the result is a bunch of smart kids struggling to dumb down their sentences to avoid trouble. "The view is good" becomes the mandatory slogan, effectively stripping the English language of all nuance and flavor just to make sure no one feels insecure about their limited vocabulary. 16. A camp in Mississippi has invented a punishment that is supposed to improve morale but definitely destroys it. They have a mandatory happy hat, which is a massive, heavy, rainbow-colored sombrero. If a counselor decides a camper looks too grumpy or isn't smiling enough, the kid is forced to wear the sombrero until their mood improves. Nothing says "cheer up" like forcing a child to wear a humiliation helmet that weighs 3 pounds and ruins their peripheral vision. It is the beatings will continue until morale improves strategy, applied through millinery. Instead of smiling, most kids just plot their revenge from beneath the brim of the hat. 17. In North Dakota, the math police have taken over a summer camp and outlawed standing in groups of 3. The stated reason is that odd numbers create exclusion, assuming that one person will always be the third wheel. So, if you are having a conversation with 2 friends, you are technically breaking the law. You either have to aggressively recruit a random 4th person to join you, or stand there in silence until a counselor comes over to rebalance your social circle. It makes walking to the mess hall feel like a complex algebra equation where you have to constantly solve for x, just to avoid getting written up for exclusionary standing. 18. A Texas summer camp has implemented a strict rationing system on hygiene products, specifically limiting campers to exactly 3 napkins per meal. This draconian rule was created because, years ago, one single camper folded an entire table's worth of napkins into origami animals. Instead of telling that one kid to stop, they punished every future generation. Now, napkins are treated like gold bars. You have kids hoarding unused napkins in their pockets and trading them for dessert. If you spill your juice, you're out of luck. You better use your sleeve because the administration has decided that sticky arms are a fair price to pay to prevent paper cranes. 19. At a camp in North Carolina, the administration has decided that pillows need souls. They mandate that every camper must give their pillow a proper name to build emotional attachment and make the bunk feel more like home. While the intention might be sweet, the reality is a barracks full of boys fighting over who gets to name their pillow the Terminator or Sir Fluffington 3. It gets even weirder when counselors ask about the pillows by name, as if they are checking on a sick relative. "Hey, did you remember to fluff Steven this morning?" It is a level of forced intimacy with bedding that frankly borders on the clinical. 20. Deep in the cheese-filled heart of Wisconsin, a camp administration decided that what cabins really needed was a plastic mascot with a wardrobe budget. Every cabin is issued a standard plastic lawn goose and is legally required to dress and decorate it according to a weekly theme. Failure to keep your goose fashionable results in public humiliation. The entire cabin must stand up in the dining hall and perform a goose appreciation chant in front of hundreds of people. The twist? The kids have figured out the system. Some cabins now intentionally leave their goose naked just so they can force their shy bunkmates to do the chant, turning a punishment into a weird form of peer pressure entertainment. It is psychological warfare centered around a piece of plastic poultry. 21. At a camp in Ohio, the counselors decided to turn a childhood meme into a mandatory law. For 1 hour every evening, the floor is lava rule is in full effect within the cabins. This isn't a suggested game, it is a strict regulation. Campers are forbidden from touching the floor and must navigate the room by climbing over bunk beds, leaping onto trunks and swinging from rafters like frantic monkeys. The camp claims it builds agility, but mostly it just builds a lot of sprained ankles and broken suitcases. It is a personal injury lawsuit waiting to happen, disguised as team building. 22. A camp in Utah has declared itself the enemy of musical creativity. They have strictly banned the changing of any song lyrics. There is no remixing, no ad-libbing, and absolutely no modern slang allowed in traditional campfire tunes. If you try to replace row in row, row, row your boat with yeet, you will be silenced faster than a political dissident. One brave soul tried to turn Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star into a trap rap and was cut off mid-bar by a counselor who clearly hates joy. The goal is preserving tradition, but the result is a bunch of bored kids droning through songs from 1850 while secretly mumbling the funny versions under their breath. 23. Out in the deserts of Arizona, there is a camp that treats fallen timber like royalty. They have a strict rule forbidding campers from stepping over logs. You must either walk all the way around them or, and I am not joking, ask a counselor for permission to cross. The rationale is that logs deserve respect, which implies that deadwood has feelings and a hierarchy. If you think this sounds ridiculous on paper, just imagine the visual of 20 kids standing in a single-file line in front of a 6-inch twig, waiting for a 19-year-old college student to grant them authorized passage. It is bureaucracy applied to hiking, which is exactly what nature was missing. 24. A camp in North Carolina has turned snack time into a primal struggle for survival. They mandate that campers must eat apples without using their hands. The director claims this bizarre rule builds survival skills and improves coordination. In reality, it just makes the entire campgrounds look like a blooper reel from a wildlife documentary. You have dozens of kids smashing their faces into fruit, drooling sticky juice all over their shirts, and looking like starving raccoons. It doesn't teach you how to survive in the wild. It teaches you how to look absolutely unhinged while eating a piece of fruit. I'm pretty sure the counselors just do this for their own amusement. 25. In Virginia, a camp has decided that digestion is aided by forced comedy. They require at least one camper from every table to stand up and tell a joke before the meal can begin. The catch? If the joke isn't deemed funny enough by the staff, the poor kid has to try again. This is a nightmare scenario for anyone with social anxiety. You end up with a terrified 10-year-old standing on a bench, sweating bullets, desperately cycling through his mental catalog of knock-knock jokes while 300 hungry kids stare at him in silence. It's like an open mic night in hell where the price of failure is starvation. 26. A camp in Kentucky handles lost property like a hostage negotiation. If you lose an item and it ends up in the lost and found, you don't just get it back politely. You have to buy it back at a weekly auction using physical exercise as currency. You want your left sneaker back? That will be 20 push-ups in front of the whole cafeteria. Your favorite hat? A solid minute of planking. It turns simple forgetfulness into a boot camp workout, and now you see kids desperately guarding their dirty socks like they are carrying the crown jewels. 27. A camp in Michigan has taken the childhood superstition of step on a crack, break your mother's back, and codified it into camp law. They have a no stepping on cracks rule for all paved pathways. They claim it is just a fun tradition, but functionally, it turns simple locomotion into a chaotic obstacle course. You have dozens of campers hopping around like a poorly coordinated game of hopscotch, lunging over sidewalk seams and colliding with each other. Walking to the bathroom shouldn't require the agility of an Olympic hurdler, but here we are. It looks less like a summer camp and more like a massive outdoor experiment in obsessive-compulsive behavior. 28. In the flatlands of Nebraska, a camp has decided to police the very direction of movement. They have banned walking in reverse. The motto is, "Life moves forward, and so should you." It sounds like a cheap motivational poster, but they enforce it like law. If a camper takes a step backward to catch a frisbee or talk to a friend, a counselor will materialize out of nowhere to remind them to embrace progress. It is completely absurd. Sometimes you just need to back up, but at this camp, retreating is apparently a moral failing. I'd love to see how they handle a camper trying to parallel park a canoe. 29. Down in Alabama, a summer camp has a strict no sock puppets policy. This isn't because of hygiene concerns regarding used socks. No, the reason is far more paranoid. A counselor once argued that puppets give campers too much power to say things they wouldn't normally say. Apparently, the administration is genuinely afraid of a sock puppet rebellion where the cotton avatars start speaking truth to power. It is hilarious to imagine a camp director sweating nervously because a kid put a googly-eyed sock on his hand and started roasting the cafeteria food. They have effectively censored the world's softest form of protest. 30. In Georgia, a camp has banned the cross-legged sitting position, also known as crisscross applesauce. Instead, campers are instructed to sit like a noble warrior. The problem is, nobody actually defined what a noble warrior sits like. This vague instruction leads to mass confusion. Every counselor interprets it differently, so you have some kids kneeling like samurai in intense pain, others squatting like frogs, and some just sitting awkwardly with their arms crossed trying to look heroic. It turns story time into a physical endurance test where everyone is just trying to figure out the most majestic way to sit on the dirt without their legs falling asleep. 31. A camp in Florida has outlawed the classic pastime of skipping rocks. Their reasoning is spiritual. Every ripple in the water changes the lake's energy. This sounds like something a yoga instructor would say after a concussion. Instead of skimming stones across the surface, campers are instructed to gently place rocks into the water like they are performing a sacred burial ritual. It takes all the fun and skill out of the activity and replaces it with a somber, weirdly religious vibe. It is hard to enjoy the lake when you are worried that making a splash will disrupt the feng shui of the local algae. 32. A camp in Texas demands absolute engagement during story time. They have a no yawning policy during campfire tales. If a camper involuntarily yawns, which is a natural biological reaction to being tired, they are forced to stand up and explain to the group why the story is actually fascinating. It doesn't matter if the story is a boring monologue about the history of pine cones. The kid has to improvise a glowing review on the spot. I wasn't bored. I was just yawning because I was overwhelmed by the sheer excitement of this rock anecdote. It teaches kids that honesty is punishable and fake enthusiasm is the key to survival. 33. A camp in Washington state takes the buddy system to a neurotic extreme. You are strictly forbidden from walking anywhere alone. I mean anywhere. If you need to walk 10 feet to the trash can, you must recruit a chaperone. This leads to absurd daisy chains of children following each other to the bathroom just to stand awkwardly outside the door. It turns a simple trip to throw away a gum wrapper into a logistical escort mission, requiring a security detail. 34. Another Maine camp has taken branding to a dystopian level by banning the word camp itself. Instead, children must refer to their location as the outdoor growth experience. If you slip up and use the forbidden four-letter word, a counselor will stop you and make you clap 3 times as a reset button for your brain. Imagine trying to have a normal conversation but getting interrupted every 30 seconds to perform a clapping ritual because you forgot to use the corporate-approved buzzwords. I can't wait to go back to see clap, clap, clap. The outdoor growth experience. It sounds less like a summer vacation and more like a re-education facility. 35. Deep in the deserts of Arizona, a camp has turned gravity into a religious experience. If a camper accidentally drops a piece of food, they aren't allowed to just pick it up or throw it away. They must hold a mandatory moment of silence for the fallen snack. The duration of this culinary funeral depends entirely on the size of the meal. A dropped cookie might get a respectful 5 seconds, but a full plate of spaghetti? You are looking at a long, somber tribute that rivals a state funeral. It is a bizarre waste of time that forces hungry kids to stand around mourning a dirty hot dog while their actual lunch gets cold. 36. Over in Louisiana, the administration has decided that pockets are the gateway to anarchy. They enforce a strict no walking with hands in pockets rule. They claim this is a crucial safety precaution, presumably to ensure you can break your fall if you trip. But the vibe it creates is pure correctional facility. When you force 50 teenagers to walk around with their arms swinging stiffly by their sides, they don't look safe. They look like they are being escorted to solitary confinement. It removes all casual body language and makes every camper look like they are hiding contraband or preparing to draw a weapon in a duel. 37. A camp in Nevada has identified the root of all childhood envy: hot chocolate toppings. They have explicitly forbidden campers from counting how many marshmallows other people put in their cups. Apparently, the marshmallow math was causing serious geopolitical tension in the mess hall. You had kids acting like IRS auditors, peering into their neighbor's mug to ensure no one exceeded the sugar quota. By banning the count, the camp hopes to stop the jealousy, but all they've done is drive the surveillance underground. Now kids just side-eye each other's mugs, silently estimating the marshmallow density like paranoid little accountants. 38. In Texas, a camp has weaponized toxic positivity. Every camper is legally required to give at least one enthusiastic thumbs up per day to promote good vibes. The intention was to boost morale, but the result is a camp full of sarcastic children maliciously complying with the rule. Now, you see kids giving exaggerated manic thumbs-ups for absolutely everything, including catastrophic failures. Dropped your lunch tray in the dirt? Thumbs up. Lost the soccer game by 10 points? Double thumbs up. It turns genuine encouragement into a creepy, robotic gesture that feels less like support and more like a glitch in the simulation. 39. A Michigan camp is apparently run by a fashion dictator with severe obsessive-compulsive disorder. They have banned rolling up sleeves unevenly. You cannot have one sleeve up and one down. You must commit to full symmetry or suffer the consequences. It sounds like a joke, but it is enforced with the severity of a military dress code. A camper once tried the rogue one-sleeve-up look and was actually handed a formal written warning by a counselor. I have no idea how that paperwork looks in a permanent file, but getting written up for asymmetrical forearm exposure is a badge of honor in its own stupid way. 40. A Tennessee camp has decided to ban the word "oops" because apparently admitting a mistake is too simple. Instead, campers must verbalize the phrase, "that was an unexpected learning moment." It turns every minor accident into a TED Talk. One poor kid spilled his grape juice all over the table and, instead of grabbing a towel, had to loudly announce, "I have just expanded my understanding of fluid dynamics." It is a pretentious way to handle clumsiness that teaches kids nothing about cleaning up and everything about how to bullshit their way through a corporate apology. 41. Up in the wilds of Alaska, a camp has a zero-tolerance policy for fake animal noises. This isn't because the counselors hate fun, it's because of the incident. Years ago, a kid unleashed such a convincing bear growl that it triggered a full-scale camp evacuation and panic. Since then, the administration takes no chances. Even a harmless moo or a playful bark can get you a serious lecture on public safety. It is probably the only place on Earth where doing a decent impression of a duck is considered a threat to national security. 42. A camp in Vermont has taken team spirit to a terrifying cult-like level by banning singular pronouns. You are not allowed to say I, me, or mine. Instead, every camper must refer to themselves as we. If a kid is hungry, he has to say, "We would like a grilled cheese sandwich." It destroys individual identity in record time. Listening to a cabin full of boys talk sounds less like a summer camp and more like the Borg Collective from Star Trek planning their assimilation of the human race. It is creepy, dehumanizing, and absolutely hilarious to watch. 43. A Pennsylvania camp has taken brand loyalty to a psychotic level by banning the mixing of sock brands. You cannot wear a Nike sock on the left foot and an Adidas sock on the right. The director genuinely insists that Nike and Adidas fans have been fighting for decades, and we won't let that battle into our camp, as if 12-year-olds are involved in violent sneaker gang wars. This ridiculous rule has naturally led to a rebellion where kids secretly swap socks in the dark just to see if the universe implodes. It is the pettiest form of contraband imaginable. 44. In the high altitude of Colorado, a camp forbids wearing your hoodie with the hood up during daylight hours. The rationale provided is incredibly weird. The sun deserves to see your face. I'm pretty sure the sun is a giant ball of burning gas that is indifferent to your facial features, but okay. It feels less like a dress code and more like a bizarre form of sun worship. Meanwhile, the sun is busy giving everyone sunburns and setting the forest on fire. But sure, let's make sure we expose our ears to it out of respect. 45. A camp in California has an obsession with hydration that borders on medical invasion. They have instituted a mandatory pee-check system. Before being allowed to enter the swimming pool or lake, campers must publicly rate the color of their urine against a laminated chart held by a counselor. If your output is darker than pale lemonade, you are grounded from swimming and forced to chug water at a picnic table while everyone else has fun. It turns a basic bodily function into a high-stakes public exam that determines your entire social schedule for the afternoon. 46. There is a camp in Montana that considers the index finger to be a rude weapon. They strictly forbid pointing at anything or anyone. Instead, campers must use their entire hand in a slow, sweeping motion, exactly like a game show host presenting a new washer-dryer set. If you want to show your friend where the bathroom is, you can't just point. You have to gesture towards the latrine with the elegance of Vanna White. It makes every simple direction look like a grand reveal, turning the act of finding a lost shoe into a theatrical performance. 47. A camp in Wyoming has a strict no fake accents rule. If a camper speaks in a fake British, pirate, or cowboy accent for too long, they have to write a letter to camp staff apologizing in their real voice. Someone once tried to write their letter using pirate syntax, lots of ahoy and matey, and the staff actually made them redo it. It is a crackdown on improv comedy that nobody asked for. 48. A Utah camp has implemented a biological 3 strikes law. You are allowed to sneeze once. You are allowed to sneeze twice. But if you dare to sneeze 3 times in a row, you must immediately stand up and switch seats at the dining table. There is no scientific basis for this. It isn't about germs because if it were, you would leave the room. It is just an arbitrary rule that punishes people for having allergies. Imagine trying to hold back a bodily function just so you don't have to move your tray to the other side of the cafeteria. 49. Finally, in Minnesota, the environmentalism has crossed the line into insanity. One camp forces kids to sing a specific "Thank You to the Trees" song before using any paper product. This includes toilet paper. Just picture the scene. A desperate child standing outside a bathroom stall, legs crossed, having to belt out a musical ode to a pine tree just so they can grab a few squares of 2-ply. It is so uncomfortable that many kids have stopped singing and just quietly whisper, "I'm sorry" to the toilet paper roll before using it. It is guilt-tripping at its absolute finest. So there you have it. Proof that the great outdoors is just a cover for arbitrary laws and forced enthusiasm. If you survived a camp, a school, or a job with a rule dumber than thanking your chair, I want to hear it. Go to the comments and expose the insanity. Don't protect the guilty. Name the rule, and if you're brave enough, name the place. And while you're down there, hit subscribe before I make you write an apology letter to the algorithm.